6:30 בבוקר, מוקד זקה שמאויש על ידי גוי, מחייג אליי, אמר לי, יש משהו חריג, תנסה לראות מה קורה. פצמרים, יריות, חדירה, יצרתי ישר קשר עם החמ"ל, ואף אחד לא ידע מה קורה. לקראת השעה 10 בבוקר, כבר הבנו שיש אירוע גדול, יצאו צוות ראשוני מאזור אשקלון ומאזור אשדוד.
I called up two of my volunteers in Ashdod and they joined me, went into the car. I couldn't even tell for my kids and my wife anything.
עם צאת שבת והחג, כ-180 מתנדבי זקה יצאו לזירות השונות.
עכשיו, תוך כדי התקפות, ואלה שמבטיחים אותנו אומרים, ירי צלפים, נשקדים על הרצפה. עד שמאשרים לנו לקום, 5 דקות, 10 דקות. ואז אנחנו ממשיכים לעבוד. סיימנו את שלב הפינוי, אנחנו כרגע בביצוע הניקוי, מנקים, כדי שהטבעת והשעון והארנק, שהוא חוזר לאמא, או לאבא או לילדה, לא יהיה שם טיפה מהזוועה שהמשפחה שלהם עברו. הנכס האמיתי שיש לארגון זקה זה המתנדבים.
יוצאים לכביש 232 מסדרות לכיוון בארי, בכביש של 10 דקות נסיעה. כ-80 מתנדבים כל היום, מהבוקר עד הלילה. עוד מטר, עוד גופה, עוד גופה.
And my truck was loaded with 72 bodies, and that wasn't the end. It was just the few hours of starting to collect the bodies.
Never in my life, I thought 55 years and then 33 years in Zaka, never in my life I thought that I will be loading up truckloads of bodies. It was a nightmare.
אמנם אנחנו עדיין כאן, נוגעים במראות, שוטפים את הידיים עם דמעות, אבל זה ממקום שאנחנו מסתכלים למשימה בעיניים ולא למראות בעיניים. והדבר הזה ראוי שיחרט ויסופר בספרי ההיסטוריה, גבורתם של מתנדבי זקה, שעבדו יומם ולילה, בחרוף נפש, תחת אש, ולא מוכנים לוותר עד שתושלם המשימה.
4 weeks after the disaster, we are still going house by house, looking and cleaning up the blood.
אנחנו מסתובבים פה בתוך הקיבוצים, ברחובות של בארי, כפר עזה, רעים, ואנחנו מרגישים את המוות בכל מקום. הריח הזה של הנרצחים, הריח של הגופות החרוכות.
כל בית יש סיפור קשה שהמוח האנושי לא יכול לתפוס ולקלוט איך חיות אדם מסוגלים לעשות את הדבר הזה.
אני מגיע לשם ואני רואה מתנדב מגיע אליי, הוא אומר לי תיקח, מגיש לי ככה בידיים, תינוק, אולי בגיל של הבת שלי, 2 פלוס. אני מגיש את היד, אינסטינקט לקבל, ואני לא מוכן לזה, לא נפשית, לא פיזית. התחיל לראות לי ככה הידיים, אני מחזיק את התינוק, אני אומר לו, מה אתה מביא לי? הוא אומר לי, אני גם לא יכול להחזיק את זה. והתינוק היה רותח. ואני זוכר שהוא פותח מיד שקית, ואני מכניס את הידיים עם התינוק פנימה לתוך השקית. הוא סוגר את זה, וככה אנחנו הולכים לאמבולנס, ושתינו בוכים.
And I see these 2 little kids are burned to their bones. There's nothing left from them. And we take them out of the parents' hands. We lay them down on the floor. And we put them in the bags. And every bag that you walk out of the room, you see the cake standing there. The happiness that they had before.
What we saw over there on the wall was written with blood, Shema Yisrael. That's it, because they couldn't further because they were killed already.
אנחנו כמתנדבי זקה קיבלנו החלטה שלא נעצור ולא נעזוב פה את המקום עד שלא נביא את כל הקדושים לקבר ישראל. ואנחנו לא נשקוט. כל טיפת דם שיהודי שנרצח פה יגיע לקבר ישראל. ואם זה יהיה חודש וחודשיים וכמה שזה יצטרך, מתנדבים לא יוותרו ויבואו לפה יום אחרי יום. יעברו קיבוץ קיבוץ, יישוב יישוב, בית בית, רכב רכב, כל איפה שהיה יהודי שנרצח, אנחנו נביא את כל הדברים לקבר ישראל.
We're doing it for Klal Yisrael. This is our mission, and we promise we'll finish our mission. Am Yisrael Chai.
Benny, appreciate you sitting down with us, having this conversation. You just got back from Israel not too long ago.
That's right.
What was the reason for this trip that you went on? What was the motivation, and what were y'all there to do?
Okay. So, being chaplain, the lead chaplain of the Greenville County Sheriff's Office, I'm a member of the ICPC, International Conference of Police Chaplains. And so the Israeli police, they have a national police, so they're the INP, Israeli National Police. Everybody's familiar with IDF, the Israeli Defense Force.
Right.
But so they're the Israeli police. They reached out to the ICPC and asked to send a group of chaplains from America to come over because of the trauma they're suffering through the police department. The military is pretty well known about fighting this war, but the police department's been fighting this war as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the trauma they've experienced through this, they asked for chaplains to come. So 27 chaplains from across America that are members of ICPC were asked to go over. I was the only one from South Carolina. They were spread North Carolina, Virginia, Ohio, California, Oregon, all across the country. We went over, and it was called a solidarity trip between the American police chaplains and the Israeli police chaplains and police officers there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so our purpose was to be a sounding board for them, a debrief. Long story, we do debriefings and diffusions after traumatic events. And so it was a time for us to go over and let them diffuse and debrief them with the trauma they've been through and the trauma they're still going through.
Right, and there's still a lot going on over there in that country.
Amazing.
Just when you landed in Tel Aviv, well, I mean, it probably felt like a different world that you were
Yes.
entering into.
Yeah.
I mean, what was that? What was that like? Just getting into the country that first day.
Yeah, because I've taken groups. I think I've been there 11 times taking church groups on tours. Well, you're always excited,
Right.
This is going to be a great tour, and they are great tours. But this time I didn't know what to expect because they're at war,
Right.
and so LL's the only one flying in there. It was Israeli Airlines, and so when I landed, normally when you land, the airport is packed. You stand in line hours to get through passport control. And we land and go right through, and there's nobody in passport control.
Mm.
And so it was like an eerie feeling for me because I've been there so many times, and I went through passport customs and all that, and it was just an eerie feeling. You almost, in reality, I was watching out the window when we were landing, make sure I didn't see any missiles flying.
Right.
So
right.
it was a totally different feel. But once we got there, I felt very safe in the country. We'll talk a little more later. Even in some dangerous spots, I felt safe.
Right.
So,
Right.
But a different feel for sure.
Right. Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
So you work with the police departments. I'll let you kind of talk about what that was like. But one thing we spoke about was how this conflict began. You talked about the police officers really on the front lines,
Yes.
and really from day one. They
Yes.
were there in the front lines
Yes.
when things started to go haywire on October 7th.
Yes, they were the first ones to encounter Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happened, just because of a lot of technicalities, I won't go into it too deep here,
Right.
about the border. The border was not secure that day.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they breached, and we hear about that one fence breach is what we always hear about. And I have maps and videos and pictures and all. There was 100 breach entry points that day.
Wow.
They came in paragliders. They flew over the fence.
Yeah.
And came in with AK-47s and when they were shooting from the air, killing people. Came in by sea from the Mediterranean Sea on the outskirts of Gaza. So once they did, the police department, and I didn't even think about this, but the police department is responsible for any terrorism in the country. And so once they breached that fence, it was the police department. And we were at a place called Sderot, which is right down there close to the main breach point.
Right.
There. And the first thing the terrorists did is come to the police department, take over the police department.
So that day, you want to talk about that now?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Stay-Rot is a little city down there, and that's all the homes. It was an eerie feeling there because all those people are staying in hotels in Jerusalem because they had to evacuate them because they're still putting missiles across. And so they came in, and Stay-Rot had a police department. It was a Saturday morning, Sabbath day, Shabbat for them. So it was a very quiet day. Everybody was in their homes, called it Shabbat. And Saturday morning, there were only 9 police officers in the what we call a law enforcement center, police department. And so the 26 terrorists came in because Stay-Rot's about I think about 7/10 of a mile from the fence. They come in 26 terrorists with RPGs and AK-47s and 50 calibers and 50 millimeter rounds, and so they come in and take the police department. And immediately they enter the police department because nobody's expecting this. Nobody had a clue. Even once it happened, nobody knew what was happening.
Right.
The delay of getting everything, the information out, they just knew that people were being killed. They take over the police department, kill 4 officers immediately. The other 5 officers are trying to return fire. All they had was their 9 millimeter sidearm. The rifles were in the vault. So they're trying to combat these terrorists with a 9 millimeter pistol. So they make it. The other 5 make it to the roof, and so it's a longer story, but I'll condense it. So 4 of them were killed on the roof. One, I think she was 52 years old. Her name's Molly. I'll never forget that because my granddaughter's name's Molly, and her name was Molly. And so she was the last one alive in the police department that day, and she was hit. She was injured, and she took a round or 2 in her leg, and so they were trying to take cover on the roof. They ran out of ammunition, and so on the radio she told them, "Please tell my son how much I love him because I'm about to die."
Wow.
And so their SWAT team, what we call SWAT, was already on the way. And so she said I was talking to her privately, and she said she saw it in a movie one time where somebody pulled dead bodies over themselves to cover up to make it look like they were dead too. And said she thought of that. And so 2 of her fellow officers who were laying close to her dead, and she was unable to get up to run anymore, she pulled those bodies over her. She said, I was shaking so bad that I said, "Oh God, please help me calm down so that they'll think I'm dead." And she said this peaceful calm came over her, and she quit shaking, and she could see with her face down, she was face down, she could see the terrorist's foot, and he nudged all the bodies with a rifle and never fired another round and walked off.
Wow.
So as he went back down, they were firing out, and the SWAT had arrived. They used a crane, and they got her off the roof and saved her life. So she was the only one that survived that day by playing dead.
Right.
And so SWAT gets her off the roof. They realize that she tells them everybody else is dead. So they realize 26 terrorists, and they broke the windows. Civilians are coming out on the street because nobody knows what's happening. And when the civilian steps out, they kill them. They shoot them from the police station. Every police officer, I've got videos of police that they come in their personal cars, and as soon as they open up with a 50 caliber, shooting them, they're crashing, killing police officers, shooting RPGs at police officers who are trying to take it. The chief of police who was there, we were able to meet with, he said he realized that they tried to advance in there to get them. He knew he was going to lose more people. So the decision was made to take the building down. They brought a tank in and put 8 rounds from a tank in that building, and the terrorists were still shooting. And civilians were still coming out and being shot. So they brought in a helicopter, put 2 missiles in that building, and they were still shooting. And so the decision was made. They brought in what we call a track hoe.
Yeah.
Now theirs is armored and bulletproof glass. Who thinks we need that? They bring this track hoe and collapse the building on them and pull 26 dead terrorists out of there, and their other police officers, other 8 police officers, get them out of the road. And so that's what started that morning. And as these are trying to get there, she was probably, I didn't ask her age, I'd say she's 25 years old maybe. She responded from her home in her personal vehicle, said she was down. Of course, Israel has cameras everywhere. I have videos of this girl coming to work where she got attacked. And she sees soldiers at the intersection, thinking they're IDF. And so she approaches, they open fire on her with a 50 caliber. She realized it's terrorists who had already killed some soldiers and took their uniforms. They were standing out there like they were soldiers. So they're putting rounds into her car. And the video, you see that she goes through the intersection, they're still shooting. and the car explodes. The motor explodes with a big old cloud of smoke. She exits the car. All she had was her 9mm sidearm with her. She's trying to hold them off. She realized she's gonna be overrun. She falls off of a cliff down into a ditch and falls on 2 dead people they've already killed. And she's shot twice in her leg, and she limps through the woods. Finally makes it to a business, and the security guard there who was armed, him and her hold the terrorist off till they get some help there as the terrorists came through the woods for her. She went to the hospital. The chief got up after she shared with us, and the chief said, "Let me tell you the rest of it. When they removed the bullets from her legs and bandaged her, she came back out and went back into the fight." So
Wow.
that's kind of the spirit they have there. They were not going to let the terrorists take over their country.
That's right, right. And there's still a lot of terrorism going on now.
Oh,
The news doesn't seem to be covering it,
No.
but you were there. I mean, you there were still bombings. There's still a
Yeah.
lot of fighting going
Yes.
on for those people.
Yeah. Matter of fact, when we were going to Stay Right, we detoured because a terrorist had stopped in traffic and got out and started shooting people in traffic.
Wow.
So there's still terrorists in the country. That's the problem. They don't know who's terrorist and who's not terrorist there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's terrorists staying in the West Bank right now. And so they're coming out in traffic at a bus stop 2 weeks before we were there. When the terrorists started shooting at the bus stop, killing Israelis. And so in both cases, we have a saying, one of the chiefs said, finish this phrase for us. If you see something, and he said, what do y'all say? We say, you say something. He's like, you can't do that here. When you see something, do something.
Right.
And he said, our civilians, most of them are armed, and we encourage them to be. And at the bus stop there and in traffic, both of them were killed by civilians before the police could even get there. So it's that kind of life they live every day in fear. But it's a fear of their life. But there's such a, I don't know how you describe patriotism about the land. They know God gave them that land, and they're not going to leave that land, and they're not going to let terrorists have that. And so they're the pride of being Israeli. They're going to do whatever it takes to do that, to keep that.
Right, absolutely. I mean, and working with some of these police groups, that care about the country so much, and they are traumatized,
Sure.
have went through a lot. How was it like working one on one with them? I mean, I know you have some stories.
Oh, we went to the Nova Music Festival, the grounds where that was. 400 Israelis were killed there that day. There was 21 police officers that were there for security that day, type thing. Had a tent set up. And so the captain that we were talking to was the only one who survived that day. And he said the word came, again, a lot of confusion. They didn't know what was happening because they had no heads up. And all he got was radio, and they said, get everybody out of there. And so he started sending cars telling people to leave. People didn't want to leave, they were just like, what? And so he said, they were trying to get them out. They were sending them both ways. There was a road there at the festival. So they were sending them both ways. And he said, just in a minute, they were coming back with bullet holes in their car, saying they're shooting at us. He's like, who? They're like, we don't know, but there's people down there with AKs, 50 caliber shooting at us. So they all piled back in there. So then he gets a group of his police officers. They start advancing, trying to find out what's happening. And so immediately, here comes motorcycles. The terrorists, I have a picture of 85 motorcycles that they took out terrorists on. And they were coming in on a motorcycle, 2 and 3 on a motorcycle with AK-47s just spraying bullets. And so they take cover in the woods. He calls for his police officers. Her name was Debbie, and she was one of his officers. And she was still at the tent because all the civilians had gathered around her. She was trying to protect them. And he told her on the radio, we're being overrun. Come to the woods. We're going to try to take cover here and see if we can get help in here. She said, I can't leave these civilians. I've got to try to protect them. He said 20 seconds later, the terrorists had already killed them all. And he got on the radio and said, Allah Akbar. He said he knew then he'd lost them all. And so he was traumatized. And he had not been able to talk to anybody. He said everybody's trying to get him. He said, I just don't want to talk about it. And he was so traumatized, he could barely talk to us. Fortunately, we were able to spend some time with him and talk with him, and try to help him through that and encourage him to get further help.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
The trauma, the Zaka, Z-A-K-A, is their search and rescue. I tell you, and I get emotional just thinking about what they've been through and are still going through. And I have a video of them, and I mean, they're weeping. This one, he said, been doing it. He'd been serving the country 50 years through military in Zaka, 33 years in Zaka.
Right.
He said, I never imagined the first run he did, they had to collect the bodies. He said, I had 72 bodies in my truck. And he said they were going to get an ice cream truck. They spotted an ice cream truck, was going to confiscate it to take bodies in, and the driver had already picked up 24 bodies that was in the ice cream truck.
Oh, my goodness.
And he said they're just torn all to pieces. A 50 millimeter round, a 6-inch round they were firing was cutting people in half. And so they were doing it. And so there's still the stories of dead babies. See, that,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't want any baby to suffer, but, you know, now all you hear about is Hamas and all the people in Gaza. But the focus was never focused on all the babies that were killed and beheaded and mutilated. I mean, sexually mutilated. That Hamas was doing it in front of their parents, making parents watch them.
Yeah.
And they had to collect these bodies. They were putting them in ovens, and they were so hot. One of them on the video, he's weeping. So they handed him the baby. It was so hot he couldn't even hold the baby. So it was boiling hot. And so that's what they're doing. And they're going now through every car, every crime scene, everywhere someone was killed. They're collecting all the blood and all the body tissue and body parts to give a proper burial for that. And they said, we will not stop until we accomplish the mission. The salvage yard there has thousands of cars and motorcycles and trucks, terrorist trucks that they were able to kill the terrorists are all there. Police officers' vehicles that were killed.
Yeah.
They're cleaning all those vehicles out. Going in on the video, they're cleaning baby cribs where they were shot in their cribs. They're cleaning the blood off that. Even if the whole family was killed, they're cleaning those houses so that whoever moves into that house won't see the carnage of what Hamas did that day. So, I mean, trauma. I mean, the trauma they've been through. I thought I'd been through some trauma.
Right.
Nothing in comparison to what they've been through.
Right. And a lot of these groups, remember you mentioning, a lot of these groups are volunteer. All these police officers are volunteer.
Yes, it's amazing. In Israel, they have 32,000 police officers. It's a national police force. They have 40,000 volunteers. They have more volunteers than they do paid police. And they're not paid much either.
Right.
You know, it's $2,000 a month is starting to pay for a police officer. And prices, I bought a hamburger, fries, and a drink was $35 over there right now.
Wow.
Diesel and gas is around $8 a gallon. You know, one meal was $54 for a meal.
Oh,
and so prices are astronomical right now. And so they have these volunteers that are doing it for nothing. Then Zaka is they have some who head it up, but they have, I forget the number, thousands of volunteers. They're doing that for nothing because they love their country and believe God's called them for a purpose to do that. And they, you know, the respect. You know, I really kind of had to search my own heart there because their respect for the dead far exceeds our respect for the dead. I don't know if you're old enough to remember, we used to if a funeral was coming down the road, everybody stopped, pulled over on the side of the road and waited for that funeral. You know, we don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Boy, I mean, the respect for the dead there is incredible. And their heart is for Israel. You know, the patriotism we see there is incredible.
Right. And there's this centeredness around that there is still a covenant. You know, God has made his covenant with Israel, and that still stands. That's what they believe, that they have this land.
Yes.
But ultimately, the Israelis want peace.
Yes.
They don't want to further expand their territory.
Exactly.
They just want the land that God has given them.
Right.
It's the opposite for Hamas and their
Exactly.
groups. They want to wipe everyone out.
Yes.
I mean, and so, I mean, has there been talks of peace? When you talk to a lot of police officers, is that what they want? They just want peace. They just want,
Yeah. And you know, one of the most powerful statements that I heard while I was there, and it was I know it was. We were in the northern district up there where Hezbollah is shooting missiles.
Yeah.
Day before yesterday, they were shooting missiles across. So you have in Jerusalem, the hotels are full of the evacuees from Gaza, not from Gaza, but in Israel at the Gaza border, because they're still shooting missiles across there.
Right.
Hamas, even while we were there, Hamas done made it back up to the northern part of Gaza. We were a quarter of a mile from where they were bombing. The ground was shaking. See the smoke, smell it. 1/4 of a mile from where they were bombing over there then. So those in Sderot, they had moved to hotels in Jerusalem. In the northern part of Israel, because of the Hezbollah's missiles, 2 days ago, I showed you the video earlier.
Yeah.
Those missiles coming across, and everybody's like, thank America for Iron Dome, because they're shooting those rockets down.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But that there's so much tragedy on both ends of the country. And so the commander of the Northern District, we were meeting with him, and he said, everybody's talking about peace in the Middle East. He said, it's very simple. If the enemies of Israel will put down their weapons, there will be peace in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
He said, if Israel puts down their weapons, they'll destroy us.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there and I thought, all these talks,
Right.
how simple that is, because Israel does not attack people.
Right.
They attack when they're attacked. And he said, if they'll leave, as a matter of fact, and this is true, I hadn't thought of this. He said, we welcome the Arabs to live among us if they'll live peacefully. There's a lot of Arabs in the West Bank. He said, the reason we have to start putting in measures and restrictions is because they're trying to kill us.
Yeah.
He said, if they will put down their weapons, there will be peace here.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, how easy is that? What country is urging the Arabs to put down their weapons against Israel?
Right.
We're not hearing that.
Right.
We're saying Israel needs to show restraint. And he said, we're showing restraint. He said, we're dropping leaflets in. We're making announcements. You need to leave this area. We're going to be bombing this area. We're going to come in. And he said, they will not leave. He told one story. He said, going house to house. He said, they're going in and said, they're throwing their hands up saying, no Hamas, no Hamas. And he said, then somebody steps out from behind one of them and starts shooting the soldiers. He said, so even these innocent civilians, they're hiding, they're harboring Hamas. And so it's really a complicated mess that could be solved with an easy answer.
That's right.
Put down your weapons against Israel.
Yeah.
And Israel won't bother you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's very sad because ultimately these Muslim extremist groups are motivated by killing.
Yes.
They think they'll be rewarded for killing.
Their scriptures say that.
Absolutely. That as they call them infidels, they think they'd
Right.
be rewarded for killing the Israeli people. But
Yeah.
talk a little bit about you already have, but the heart and soul of these people in Israel. You said there's so much patriotism. There's so
Yes.
much. They're kind of all gathering together. There's a little bit of division in the country, but they're all gathering together under this notion of keeping the covenant land.
Yes. We met with, and I'm sorry I lose names because most of their names I couldn't pronounce in the Hebrew anyway.
Right.
But the Speaker of the Parliament, we were able to meet with him. We met the first morning. We went to the Parliament, met with the Speaker of the Parliament, and he was just a great guy. And so he was talking to us, and he said, I think it was either 1 or 2 weeks. He said, I've only been back 1 or 2 weeks because he was in the military. He was a commander in the military for years.
Mm-hmm.
And he retired, I guess, or whatever his time come up, retired, whatever. And he said, but when this war started, he said, I couldn't sit up here in Parliament while my brothers were down there shedding blood for our country.
Yeah.
So he had to get special permission because of his age. They age out, I guess, in the military as far as being on the front line. He got special permission to go back. He said, so I just got back. It was either a week or two before we got there. He said, I just returned from fighting in Gaza. And he said, this is our country. God's given us this country. And to hear time and time again with these police officers, they're like, this is our country. One of the commanders that was there lived in Great Britain. They moved back there when he was like 11 or 12 years old. And I said, you ever think about moving back to Great Britain? He said, no, this is my country. This is where my parents were from.
Right.
And he said, this is where God gave us the land, and this is where we're going to stay. And even those, as a matter of fact, I just read this week, they're moving back to Sderot. They're going back into their homes down there, even though they're still shooting missiles across. They have bomb shelters at every bus station. Every home and apartment has a bomb shelter. They have 15 seconds from the time the siren goes off because of close proximity, 15 seconds to get in those bomb shelters. And they're saying, we're going back because you're not going to drive us out of this land.
Yeah.
And it's incredible to think that, most Americans would say, we take our situation, Greenville Country people, I wouldn't live in that neighborhood,
Yeah.
Well, these people said, we're going to live in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Because this is our land. They believe, and you have Orthodox Jews, you have some Messianic Jews, but all of the Jews believe God gave that land to them.
Right.
And they're not going to give that land up. And it's an amazing thing, a tiny little piece of land, 175, 150, 175 miles north, south, 75 miles wide, no natural resources, and everybody wants that land. And God, it's because, I'll put it this way, it's because they're anti-God.
Yeah.
It's not just they're anti-Israel, anti-Semitic. It's they're anti-God.
That's right.
They hate
That's
what
right.
God's done. And so they've got their false gods that they say is telling them to destroy all these infidels.
Mm-hmm.
And Israel is saying, we're not going to do that. And I think I see a unity there that this war has brought with Israel. Yeah, and I personally like Netanyahu. Some don't like. There were some protests before this started about the power he has. One thing I know is he loves that land and he wants to defend it, and he's ready to do whatever it takes to make sure that Hamas does not take over and Hezbollah does not take over. And the demonic mindset that Hezbollah and Hamas has, I mean, I don't know how anybody can support that. People who are protesting that in our country, they need to go over there and see, I said, give them a one-way ticket to Gaza.
Yeah.
Let them go over there and if they support Hamas, let them get in there in the middle of that. And they'll really see how demonic that is.
That's right. That's right.
So,
And as as Christians, we understand this is nothing that we shouldn't expect. We knew that
right.
there would be wars in
Yes,
Israel
exactly.
after they got the land
Sure.
back.
Yeah.
This is all part of prophetic fulfillment. But for us, for a lot of us in America, the news media is not covering a lot of this.
Right.
We're not getting a lot of the information. How can we pray for Israel right now? And is this conflict even close to being over? Is there a lot of work to do?
A lot of people have asked me that, and we were asking them, and their mindset is, and this is what we heard more than once.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying we're hoping within 2 months this thing will be done.
Okay.
And Netanyahu's saying, we're pushing on, we're not going to stop. And the world pressure, that's what they said. Please go back and tell them that they're not getting the true story. They're not seeing. If you could see the videos that I have and saw there, how Hamas terrorized them, you'd say, look, we need to do away with Hamas. They do not need to be a part of the land of Israel.
Right.
In Gaza, here's the thing that's not on the news. Before the war, Israel was sending 50 truckloads construction material, medicine, and food into Gaza every day. They've been helping them. You don't see that on the news. Now they're talking about how they wouldn't help. They've been helping them.
Yeah.
And they still attacked them.
Yeah.
So the spirit of Israel is strong right now. And you can feel that among them. In the police departments and the military, we're able to talk to some of the military. They're like, this was they kept saying, this is our 9/11. Yeah. This has woke us up. This has brought us, you remember the unity, 9/11, and I'm afraid we've lost some of that in America, but there was such a unity there about being an American and defending our land, and more people were signing up for the military to go fight against the terrorists. Well, that's what you're seeing there. There's a unity there. And, I'm just one who believes God can send a great revival, and he might send a great revival through this.
Right.
And see that God's people would rise up and support Israel. In the book of Judges, it says, because they didn't drive all the people out of the land like God said to, he said, there'll be a thorn in your flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And they are.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to make sure, and I told the church where I'm filling in, I'm glad God gives us second chance and third chances and fourth chances sometimes.
Right.
And he's not give up on Israel, and he's not going to give up on Israel. Even though they're going to have tough times because they did not obey him like he told them to do. We don't obey him like he's told us to do, and he gives us another chance.
That's right.
So we've got to support them.
Yeah.
I hear people say, well, they're getting what they I'm like, listen, we've got to support Israel. The covenant Israel and political Israel, I understand that's separate. But right now, those lines are close.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to support political Israel so that we can support covenant Israel.
That's right. And talking about many of the chaplains that you were with, you were with many different chaplains, and not all of them were, Christians and or Southern Baptists.
Right.
You were with many different groups, mm-hmm. But I imagine there was a unity there as well. Yes. But even though there might be some differences theologically.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I didn't bring one with me. I should have brought one with me. So we had 4 rabbis that were with us. Mm-hmm. Then there were 2 Southern Baptists. One Vern from Florida was Southern Baptist. There were 2 Southern Baptist boys. We were joking. In the police station, they have synagogues. And so they invited us into a time of prayer service. We went in, and of course, very strange for us,
Yeah.
We came out, and I told Vern, I said, how I could tell that wasn't Southern Baptist? He's like, boy, it looked like, well, yeah. And I'm like, we didn't take an offering. But it was very interesting.
Yeah.
But then there were a lot of Assembly of God, Church of God, Church of God of Prophecy. But my challenge coin that I have, my chaplain challenge coin, has an American flag on it with a cross on top. And so when we went, our team leader said, "Hey, we need to be sensitive to the culture. And it's hard for me to keep my mouth shut about Jesus, right?"
Right.
So I said, "Well, what about these coins?" And he was like, "Well, I don't know about that." Well, the main rabbi said, "Bring them. They'll be glad to receive." Matter of fact, I gave him one. And I was able to talk about the crosses on top of the flag. First of all, I'm a Christian.
Right.
Secondly, I'm an American, and how important this was. One person refused one out of that. I gave away hundreds of chaplain's coins.
Wow.
And the Orthodox Jews were taking those coins because there's such a thankfulness for us to be there. They're saying, "We're so glad to see Americans coming here telling us." All they're hearing is about all the protests against them in America.
Right, that's
They're
right.
I'm like, no. The majority of people and they were so glad to see us. And those coins, I'm praying those coins will have an influence in their life.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
it was an amazing thing.
That's awesome. Yeah. We all able to go in the holy city some?
Yes, we did.
Go into Jerusalem?
Yeah, so we did. Because a lot of, unfortunately, most of the group that went had never been there before. I think there might have been 5 of us maybe that had. And so, you don't want to, we didn't have time to tour the holy sites as we normally do, but we're able to take them. We walked the Via Dolorosa with them. The Garden Tomb was closed then, so we were able to take them there. The Church Holy Sepulchre, which I don't think is the place where it was. I think it's Garden Tomb. But anyway, It was open, but it was under construction. They were able to see the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall, took them there. So they got to see a little bit. And we actually went in and saw the overwatch of the old city with the police department there, which was an amazing thing to see. So they got to see some of that. But again, this eerie feeling.
Yeah.
Because when I'm in the old city on tour groups, it's shoulder to shoulder. I mean, you might encounter 20 people walking down. The Via Dolorosa is usually so full you can't move. And I mean, we had 6 feet on all sides of us because nobody's there.
Wow.
So, the sad thing, tourists, there's no room in the hotels right now for tourists to go back.
Right.
Because there's so many families displaced.
Right.
But yeah, the tourism, and so they're hurt. That's why our prices are so high.
Yeah.
Tourism's their main source of income.
That's right.
So they're suffering. We got to pray for them. Pray this will come to an end soon. That tourists can go back, and I'm planning on taking a group back as soon as we can to help support Israel.
Yeah, that's awesome. I guess that's kind of how we'll close it out is really in how we can pray for these people.
Sure.
How we can pray for the police officers, the military that you've encountered. They've been through a lot, and there's still a lot of work left to do. How can we pray for those people?
Sure. So first of all, pray for their safety because every day, the problem they have is, if they're encountering terrorists that have AK-47 slung around their neck, it's pretty easy to identify them. But what they're encountering is people on the streets with, and it's still a little cool in the mornings and the evenings over there. So a code is not out of the question, even during the daytime, hiding the guns under and opening fire on that. So pray for their safety and discernment. There's a lot of criticism about the military and the police about shooting innocent people.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole story is not being told there when they're charging against them. The Damascus Gate, for example, more police officers are killed at that gate than any place in the old city because the bus stops right across the street. And the terrorists get on the bus, come over, either set off a bomb or shoot them, come in with AK-47s to shoot them. So we need to pray for their safety. Then secondly, we need to pray for wisdom for them to be able to, because what they're trying to do, they want to coexist with the Arabs.
Mm-hmm.
They're not anti-Arab. They're not even anti-Muslim. As a matter of fact, some of the police officers are Muslim. So I guess that caught me by surprise.
Right.
And so they said, no, we have police officers who are Muslim. We are not anti-Muslim. We're anti-terrorist. And so give them wisdom for that because I can't imagine trying to figure out the difference there.
Yeah.
So pray for safety, pray for wisdom, and pray that this war come to an end soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I, listen, I know, for me, I know a lot of people call it politics, but I think a lot of this is spiritual too, not politics. And how that'll shake out about the one state, two state. I just think the land belongs to Israel.
Mm-hmm.
and they're willing to let Arabs live there. That they don't have to have a state. They just need to learn how to live peacefully among them.
That's right.
And so pray that that'll happen. Israel's ready. They're ready for that. They'll do that. But the enemies of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So pray that God will, God will intervene to anybody to let him intervene. But pray that God will do something that will cause the wave to turn away from criticizing Israel and to supporting Israel.
That's right. That's right. Benny, thank you. We're so glad you're back safe.
I'm glad to be back safe.
That's right. That's right. But thank you for taking this time to share with us today.
Thank you for letting me share with you.
Yes, sir.
Great.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Benny.